Okay, while the fabric is in the dryer, what I want to do is I want to pull out my pattern. This is the one I'm using for that dress, for that fabric. And it is a McCall 6554. As you can see, it's just a little sundress. And we're making this version, which is the same, A. And then I pull out the instructions, where we've got my guide sheet, and you can see the details a little bit better. Here we've got, it's pleat in the front, center, back, seams, darts on each side, and of course it has side pockets. And looks like we're looking at 7 pieces. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the belt. And we're going to use this, look at the layout that we'll be using, but I usually do that after I have my fabric laid out. Okay, so first what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the pieces that are required, and they just told us 7 pieces, so we need all 7. So 1, 2, that's the top. 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 is the pocket, 6 is the back or front. I'm sure it's the back, and then the belt. All right, so we're gonna find those pieces in the pattern envelope, and I've used this before, so I already have these pattern pieces trimmed from the remainder of the fabric. The remainder of the tissue. So I'm just gonna find all 7 pattern pieces. I will press them out using a low iron, no steam, so you don't wet up the tissue paper, and I will go from there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and press these pieces out. I think I've selected all of them here. So that's everything in the everything that was in the envelope. Okay, so here's one. Number 1. Then we have number 2. Right here. Okay, get my hands on it. The wind is blowing it away. That's 2. And then this piece is 6. So the rest of them are in here. Okay, so we'll pull these out and press them, and be ready when the fabric is dry. We'll come back and press that as well. But right now we're gonna press these. See how wrinkled these pieces are? Just gonna press the wrinkles out, the fold lines out, so they'll fit on my fabric smoothly. Okay? All right. Okay. I finished pressing my pattern pieces, and I'm just going to put them, lay them out, and put some weights on them to keep the wind. I have the fan on, so keep the fan from blowing them away when I get ready for them. So we're going to go over the guide sheet while we're waiting for the fabric to dry. So, and the reason we're looking over this is because we want to determine if there are any adjustments we need to make on the pattern before we cut it out and sew up our garment. So sometimes the finished measurements are on the back of the pattern envelope. Like, this is the pattern I'm using, but if I turn over on the back, I can see on the little tab right here. Okay, there's a little tab. If I turn it over, then I can see that there are body measurements listed here by size. Let's see if I can focus it a little bit better for you. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to focus it a bit for you. Let's see. Yeah, come on, so. Okay. Okay. Push this over a bit. So here's, with it saying to us that the bust measurement is a certain amount of inches, or of course it's in centimeters as well, you would cut along the corresponding line. All right, so it makes it really easy where you don't have to make a lot of alterations. So we're just going to follow along with this. So if I need to, if you're a size, look at the inches here. If it says 43.5, it's referring to you're being an 18. So you're going to cut an 18 out around those corresponding lines, and then you're going to do the same thing on, this is the front, you're going to do the same thing on the back. Okay, now it's quite usual for you to be a different size on the top than you are around the bottom. So if your hips or waist or what you consider not ready to wear by ready to wear guidelines, that's perfectly okay. You can actually take the measurements for your waist. Let's look at the front piece of the skirt where it's giving you a line, I thought, for your waistline. So I thought I saw it over here. The waistline on the back. So you would pretty much measure from the top down to where that waistline mark is. In this case, with the style of this pattern, if you look at it, it's basically flowing away from your waistline. So your concern at this point, it will be your hip measurement. And this particular pattern also gives you, let me move this out of the way. I know I'm wrinkling it all up after I have after I pressed it out, but that's okay. Again, with the style of the fabric, I mean the style of the pattern, see, you really, you would have plenty of room for your hips, but just to be on the safe side, you want to go back to the back of the pattern envelope and look at the hip measurement. So if your hips are if you're let's say approximately 40 inches in the hips, you would cut out the size 16. And if, let's say, you're heavier at the top, let's say you're 44 inches in the bust line and you want to cut out the 22. So you would make that change while you're cutting out your pattern piece, or you can trim it accordingly. You can cut this off right now if you need to before you even lay it on your fabric. So let's say we would cut along, if it's a size 16, you cut along this first line and cut all the rest of this off. Okay, so you just take some paper scissors and you cut along this line so that you won't be confused. All right, and then let's say for the top, you were utilizing a size 24. Okay, so you would leave it at because that's the largest size that this comes in this particular pattern. That's the 24, so this would be your cutting line right here. Okay, now the difference is when you get ready to connect your pattern piece, your top to your bottom, what you will have had to do is kind of ease it out a little bit, right along, the edge. Let's say you were all the way here at this size 16, but you are 24 around your bust line. So in one of these areas, what you want to do is kind of just start easing it out. You want to see, you would want to kind of ease it out to the 24. So you don't want to just cut it sharp. You want to, at some point, you're starting, even though I said trim it off here for 16, you've got to allow for that top if that's a huge difference. If it's a huge difference, which doesn't mean that you're abnormal, it just means that that's the size that you are. And you can make, when you sew, you can make those adjustments quite easily. All right, so let me get, this is the front. Let's get the back on the skirt, and you can see what I mean. All right, here we're making room. You'd have a little dart, so you take that up, but primarily the center back of the skirt and the center back of the top will kind of correspond. So you've got to look at how much you would have for your top. Let's say if you had this entire amount for size 24, and then you're using the size 16 over here for your bottom. All right, but when you're cutting it out, you've got a significant amount of a gap, of a difference. So you would make that adjustment on the tissue paper. So instead of just cutting out the 16 right here, right along this line, as I was said earlier, you would start, let's say, with your 16 somewhere around, you're going to pick a point, you know, around that fullest part or around that hip area, and you would have your 16 here. Okay, see, here's the 16, but you actually wanted to, since you know that you are larger at the top, you're going to start easing this over toward that line. So it's a gradual ease. It's not something that you would just abruptly cut. All right, so somewhere around an area that you think that you can ease it in, or ease it out rather. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you. So we're just going to start on that size 16, and I'm just imagining that it's laying on my fabric, and I am going to start easing out, let's say around the pocket area. All right, because this kind of represents where my pockets would start. All right, so I'd start easing away from my 16. So right now I'm right here, 16, 18. I'm still on the 18 marker, and then I will start easing out a little bit more, you know, as I come up to the other pocket marker. That's that little round circle indicates where my pockets will be attached, in addition to the notch here, and we'll see that as we go along. If you don't quite understand it now, just stay with me and we'll be able to it will make sense to you a little bit later. All right, but still, I'm still kind of easing it out. My goal is to get to the same 24-inch marker, see? And that way I'd have the same width at the top of my skirt as I would the bottom of my top. Okay? So, hopefully that makes sense. It will make sense as we start connecting it. But I just want to point out that it's quite okay. Or it could be totally the opposite. You could be larger at the bottom and smaller at the top. You still want to make the same type of adjustment. Let's say if you had a size 16 at the top right here, but your hips fell in an area of the size 24. So you pretty much do the reverse. You want to start right here. Let's say you're cutting out the size 16, but you've got to have the same amount width at the bottom of the top that you would at the top of the skirt. All right, or the top of the bottom. So and I know that's a huge amount right there, but let's just say that that's the case. You start here with this multi-size pattern, and then you would basically kind of ease out. See, as I'm going down, I am easing out to the 24. All right, so I'd probably draw my line, and that's probably the best thing to do, is to take your ruler, and you would, if you need to get to the size 24, see, that would be easier for you instead of trying to eyeball it like I've been showing you. You would start, let's say you're starting right here at the 16, and you just take your ruler and a pencil, and you would just mark it. So here's my pencil here at my 16, and I just draw down. All right, see, just draw the line till you get to the larger one. So you're easing it out. Okay, so it would look a little strange there, but it'll work. And then the same thing here on the skirt. If you needed to, if you needed the 16, but on top you are a 24, you're going to take the ruler. See where I've marked where I started right here? Here's a 16 right here. And then you will maneuver your ruler. Sorry about the light glaring. Maneuver and cut it off. Okay. You will maneuver the ruler. See how I'm just moving it over to that end point. All right, but it's a size 16 right here. So we would be able to take this pencil marker and draw a new line, and we're actually going to take this all the way up to the 24. Okay, and when we cut it out, you're going to follow the new line that you drew. All right, so it will look like that. See how I turned it over? So you can cut it now if you want. It makes it much easier, so you'd have a pattern that works for you every time, or you can fold it over like you just saw me do and pin it down. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense with adjusting your pattern and kind of having it ready so that when your fabric is dry, you'll be able to lay it out without any issues. Okay.